and or their representative. But on in LA, they want it to be somebody licensed. You know, if you go inspect a fire escape in San Francisco, you know what you need? A cup of coffee. You don't need to have a license to inspect in San Francisco. You can just walk up there and inspect a ladder, call yourself Joe Ladder Inspections, and there's no requirements up there. There's no test. There's nothing. Yet people are filling out forms and sending them back. Hi, Joe Ladder Company. I've looked at the ladder, and it is my opinion that it is. So we're trying to let San Francisco know that now LA has done a nice sheet, at least copy LA's, okay, and copy the licensing requirements and such and such and such. So again, documents that are out there. We talked about the tags. You guys like the tag system? You got to do this to sprinklers anyway. Everything's got to have a tag that you immediately get in there, everything's working. So why not have fire escape tags? Well, Seattle said, yeah, tags. So now you walk up and down the alleyways in Seattle, you start seeing white tags, and if anything's on the repair, you see yellow tags, and if anything's failed with life safety issues, you see red tags. Now let's talk about this sheet right here. We were teaching a class, and that's the second page in. We were teaching a class, and we were talking about ordinances, and we were talking about changing codes, and we were talking about all these things. And the city, and one of the state inspectors that was in my class says, why are you doing all that? Because you start changing codes, it'll take you 3 to 5 years, and the codes already exist, which we started proving. Says, your codes already say what you need to say. The interpretation of them is what's the problem. So how do you best describe an interpretation? He goes, everybody does it with what's called departmental procedures and guidelines. He goes, you write a departmental procedures and guidelines, well, the fire department and the building department can use it. And he says, you generalize it. You don't tell them what to do, you don't tell them who to use. And as long as you're referring to the code, you basically have what? An idea of how things should be done. So it's not an exact science, but this is more or less how you should be doing it. So we said, fine, can you help me write this up? He says, yeah, write it up and I'll check it out. See if so I said, okay. So I wrote it up. Now, if you're an inspector, structural engineer or an inspector, you read this. If you're a vendor repairing something, you read this. And if you're gonna paint the thing, you better read this. If you can do all three, then read all three. But let me read to you and see if this offends you right now as vendors, or if this offends, if you think this would offend a city official. Ready? In layman's terms, oh, by the way, as you can see at the top of the documentation, it has the city official's name and phone number. So we make this documentation through the National Fire Escape Association to any city that wants it. So we create this form. When we go to their website, we clip their website. So if somebody needs or has a question about this departmental procedures, who do they call? City official, because his phone number is there, 617-635-5300. Their website information, where to go get this, their website is actually clipped into there. So, and there's nobody else's phone number on here. So this is a general industry standard documentation to help people be aware of what needs to be done. So let me read to you, I'm a structural engineer and I just got handed this by my client who says, hey, I need you to inspect this fire escape, but here's how the official wants you to do it. So I, as a structural engineer, have been doing this for 25 years, says, dude, I know what to do. He goes, yeah, but you gotta read this because the official gave me this. He says, he wants you to do it this way. I said, all right, let me read it. So I'm a structural engineer and I read this. In layman's terms, the city official is looking for a registered structural engineer or others qualified and acceptable by the fire code official to do a critical examination in lieu of a live load test. I must submit criteria to be discussed prior to the inspection. So this guy wants to hear from me even before I perform my inspection and tell him how I intend to inspect. And issues a written verification and certification that all connections are free of all internal rust or rot, as well as all original hardware, square heads or bolts or rivets are reinforced and or replaced in lieu of a live load test. So does that sound like other satisfactory evidence? All supports, through bolts or cemented into the wall must be verified and certified in lieu of a live load test. So I got to do a critical examination into you all now. I've never done that before, so you asked me to, yeah, that's what he wants. A fire escape confidence test and tag must be submitted if fire escape passed. So I gotta fill out a confidence test? You have a copy of it? Yeah, right here. Oh my God, a lot of yes questions here. The report with photos identifying violations for repairs must include repair criteria submitted to the official for repair vendor to use as a guide during and with engineer oversight of permitted repairs. Wow, this is starting to become very systematic. A fire escape confidence test and tags identifying certified condition are then submitted. Recommended cycles for the live load testing is 20 years after refurbishment or as required by the official. So, any wiggle room for the structural engineer? He's tied into the official. Is he tied into the owner of the building? Nope. He's a deputized person, much like Reg 4 testers are deputized to a certain degree, to basically represent the interests of the fire department and the building department, right? So now, second hat, you're the repair company too. So now you inspect, you repair, so you gotta be very careful. I'll warn you that we're going through an issue related to fire escape only in Chicago, and it's in our best interest to have two companies independent of each other, one specifically doing inspections, does no repairs, and one that does the repairs service side. Totally different insurances, totally different everything. So we can share with that our experience with you and tell you how to do this. It's simpler than you may imagine, but it gives you a lot, it gives you double protection. Okay? So let's talk about the repair guys, which is you guys, right? In layman's terms, the city official is looking for a qualified licensed repair vendor, so who's that eliminate? Right?
Unlicensed.
You mean the florists that do your work? Right? To a licensed repair vendor to do all work under repair permit. And why did I put if required?
It might not be required.
It may not be required. You call the safety official and he goes, oh, what are you doing? I'm gonna change bolts and paint the fire escape. Oh, are you adding, changing anything? He goes, no, it's no, great for you. But it still makes everybody ask minimally for it, okay? With engineer oversight, so who's my buddy now?
Yeah, the city official.
No, the engineer oversight.
Oh.
So I'm gonna repair something, who's gotta watch me? The engineer. Of repair criteria submitted for approval to the official in lieu of a live load test. So what's that mean? Way before the repair vendor shows up to do any work, there's been ongoing communications between the fire escape engineer and the city official agreeing, yep, this criteria is exactly what I want, and if you do it this way, I don't want a load test. So the fire escape engineer, working closely with the authority having jurisdiction, are trying to avoid a load test. All connections must be free of internal rust or rot, spot primed and sealed. All worn materials repaired and or replaced. All supports into the wall reinforced, repaired, or certified in the fire escape confidence test in lieu of a live load test. All square head bolts, rivets, and welded connections must be certified, reinforced, or replaced based on age or condition. All ladders and cantilevers must be balanced and drop 2 to 3 feet per second, hit the ground and stay down, and must lead to a public way. All roof ladders must be secure. No full painting of fire escape until all spot painted repairs are inspected and certified under engineer oversight and or the city permit sign off. Further replacement is subject to permits or possible code upgrade requirements. So, repair vendors, any wiggle room? Guarantees come out of this? Right? So, we're talking about life safety, right? We're talking about the same way sprinklers have to have a guarantee, right? Everything that you're looking for guarantee. So if you can provide the word guarantee because you've done it what the code requires, you're protected insurance-wise. If you do it wrong, are you protected? No. So nice guidelines, generic enough. Does it mention fire escape services or fire escape engineers in it anywhere in here?
It says engineer.
Well, that's just the title, you know. Our Aren't you an engineer of sprinkler? Aren't you a sprinkler engineer?
According to the state of California.
No, I'm using the title. Is there such a thing as a landscape engineer?
Yeah,
Train engineer?
sure.
Building engineer?
Mhm.
So are you a are you a sprinkler engineer?
Yes,
Are you a fire pump engineer?
yes.
The word engineer, which we're trademarking fire escape engineer for that very purpose, because nobody ever thought of calling yourself a fire escape engineer, so we are fire escape engineers, right? But here's the best part. You can add engineer to landscaping, you can add engineer to practically anything that involves a special, not a special, but basically an expertise. So as soon as you have an expertise in something and you've either set the standard or you are the standard, start calling yourself an engineer. So whatever you are specifically good at, have your testers not be called inspectors, have them being called engineers. So my fire pump engineer, your specialty was, you only did one, what was it?
Oh, fire sprinklers.
Sprinkler engineers. I'll send out one of my sprinkler engineers. Are you saying that that's a structural engineer? It's a sprinkler engineer, right? So if you have somebody in your department that cleans the toilets well, what do you want to make them?
Toilet engineer.
So be careful how you use it, but we've taken the fact that we train so much. We are now going to work in conjunction with the National Firescape Association to, since there is no national certification of any kind, who do you think is going to be certifying the firescape mechanics, the firescape engineers? The National Firescape Association. Since nobody else wants to do it, we'll take it on. Okay? So does that cover any wiggle room in repairs? Let's go to painting. In layman's terms, the city official is looking for a paint vendor, EPA certified renovator, to do all work as per EPA guidelines due to the fact that the firescapes are older than 1978 and presumed to have lead, unless identified or not, as no lead or low lead by a licensed lead inspector from the state. So can you paint fire escapes anymore in California that are older than 78 without having an EPA renovator's license? Not supposed to. Well, what's the fine? Does anybody know what the EPA fine is? $34,500 per event. That'll buy a lot of paint. Each building will be notified with signage, and all precautions shall be taken to collect paint chips or at grade. No sandblasting or power-assisted scraping without full firescape encapsulation under EPA guidelines. All major connections must be sealed from water intrusion before, during, or after painting. All escapes shall be spot painted every 3 to 5 years and fully painted every 5 to 10 as needed or ordered by the fire code official. So guys, any wiggle room in the paint side?
Nope.
This is what the tags look like in Seattle. They are 9 inches by 17 inches long. They're big monsters. We make them 8.5 by 11. And as you can see, they're attached to the fire escape. That's what it looks like. Our tags are 8.5 by 11. Supposed to be able to read that from the ground. Tells you when it was inspected, when's the next inspection date, who inspected it, what licenses were involved, and the number to call when the 5-year cycle comes back. This is where you want to put your information. So who calls you back? The same owner or the new owner of the building? Let's take a look at what rust looks like. I'm going to try to prove to you that rust comes from the inside out. Okay? Any questions so far? Because we're about to enter that phase. Anybody want to get another cup of coffee, get a drink or anything like that? You guys all set?
We're good, thank you.
Okay. Let's take a look at what rust. I will prove to you that rust grows from the inside out. So, needs a paint job? Yeah,
Please.
right? This is what it looks like underneath. So if you don't poke your nose into it, and you're a city official, what kind of violation would you write for this?
Scrape the paint.
Scrape the paint. As soon as you put your nose underneath it, what do you see?
Now, this doesn't look like a fire escape to me. It looks like a stairway to an apartment. Is there a difference
All it's
code-wise and all that stuff?
By the way, first of all, this is a detention center for kids 17 and younger. Number two, it is, everything external is called a fire escape or a means of egress, but if it's outside the building, it's considered all exit stairs, exit discharges, steel or wooden stairs, fire escapes, balconies, they're all, if it's subject to weather, it's an escape system. This could be 5 feet off the ground or 10 feet off the ground. Still needs to be maintained. Anything exposed to the weather must be maintained under some code. You don't want to maintain this, cover it with a roof, close the outside, now I'll never have to inspect this again. But, looks like surface paint rust, right? The inspector driving, walking by, oh, you should paint that fire escape, scrape and paint it. What doesn't he have time to do or know about? So rust comes from the inside out, right? So let's prove it to you. This is rust in connections. Till you do a critical examination, you are stepping on these things going up and down fire escapes. So if you don't watch yourself, you're going there to inspect a ladder, where do you fall through? Ready? Now, through a court case, you already know, and it can be proven so you can start using it as the code, that on average it takes 25 years to grow a 1/4 inch of rust. How much rust we have there? About a 1/2 inch?
Half an inch,
So how many years of rust is there?
50 years.
If you say exactly 50 years, somebody's not gonna believe you, but can you say 25 to 50 years of neglect? So as you're walking to your ladder inspection, guess what your guy falls through? Now, let's see how dangerous it is for your guy to be walking up to the ladder if he has evidence of rust on the fire escape. Because he's there to inspect the ladder, sees all these tread situation, does he have to perform the ladder test?
Not if he sees damage.
If there's already damage that's gonna fail, even though the ladder is pristine, you're still gonna collect his fee, right?
Yeah.
If the owner's there and saying, hey, you know, you gotta inspect my ladder, he said, okay, I will, collect a fee, or can he collect his fee and not perform the ladder test and fail it anyway?
Well, you could fail it anyway if you felt it was unsafe.
Because you can't get there.
Right.
You can't be on the structure.
I can't be out there.
Can't be out there and I can't walk up and down, so I'm already, you're paying for the appointment, not for the actual test. As soon as you know the thing isn't gonna work, you don't go through the process of proving it isn't gonna work. Because then, if it doesn't work, how are you gonna get it up? Who is he gonna charge?
This
to put it
type
back?
of, this rust like here on the left side that
Yeah.
you're showing, is that something that you are seeing, you're taking a picture that it's just on the outside, you can visually see it? Or
Yeah, you can visually
opened
see
up
it.
something?
Yeah, every one of these you're gonna be able to visually see.
Right.
So, but let me show you why we do what's called a hammer test. So every time we walk up a fire escape, we do a hammer test. And that hammer test is not every single connection, but it's the ones that look suspect, right? And that's for our protection. It's not part of any required testing. It doesn't eliminate the need for a load test. You know, our hammer test does not eliminate anything, but it's a safety test for our inspectors to know that they're going up a fire escape and the tread's not gonna fail. Because this is what happens when you start walking up fire escapes.
That's it. I'm gonna stay down here so I don't get hurt. And what I'll do now is I have my red, the highlighted red.
It's a 3-pound hammer. The typical 150 to 250 pound inspector with his foot stepping on it is gonna exert that kind of force. So, some people say, well, you broke the tread. I said, really? You take a tread, okay, that is rusted and you hammer test it, will fall. If the other side has brand new bolts in it, you take that same 3-pound hammer and you try to shear those bolts, it'll take 20 to 30 smashes. And you're gonna shear it, but you're gonna hurt your wrist and you're gonna hurt your hand. Okay? So that's the proof if anybody ever claims. So back to the code. The authority having jurisdiction shall be permitted to approve any fire escape system that has been shown by load test or other evidence of strength. Everything we've shown you so far, any evidence of strength there?
Does the hammer test an evidence of strength?
Nope.
No.
That's just to see, to make sure it's safe for me to walk, right?
Okay.
So I'm going for other evidence of strength, every fire escape I've shown you so far. Any evidence of strength there? How about all original hardware? If you see nothing but original hardware and not one new hex head bolt, do you have evidence of strength? No. Every rivet you see from now on, every square bolt you see from now on, the only way you can get that thing to be guaranteed is by what?
Load testing it.
Load testing. So if they get old and they still look great, the only way to verify that back to the client is by
Load test.
load test. Because can you give them a guarantee and put your house and business up for risk? So the law is very clear to the owners. I know you have great rivets and great square head bolts here, but they're old now. And I need to guarantee this back to the official, as per the 3 codes, including 4604.17, which says, the authority having jurisdiction shall accept by load test or other evidence of strength. And by the way, your authority here is no longer fire prevention, building and safety. So a lot of this, like I said, you guys already knew. You just didn't know how to read it or interpret it correctly. Cantilevers, love cantilevers. You know what happens with cantilevers? The way that they're built is that there's a weight system back here that's either a box full of junk or a cast iron piece. But if you walked up to a fire escape and you saw this, would you pass or fail that right away? This cantilever right here, pointing to the sky. Pass or fail?
They probably failed because it's facing, it's
Yeah,
pointed
it's
up.
not- it doesn't look like this one, which is horizontal.
Something.
This one's starting to point to the sky, so it's out of balance.
Right.
So what happens is when things like this started happening, you know what they did to make it look like this? You fix it with $25. You know how you do it? You take that chain, I don't know if you can see the chain there, it's kind of broken, and then the rest of the chain is right there. You take it and you tie it and you make it horizontal. That's how you cheat it, so you don't get a violation. So you take that one, and you tie a chain to that corner, and the thing is horizontal. You take this thing, and you add more chunks of weight, cement, bricks and stuff, you add it back here, and this thing goes horizontal. Because what's supposed to happen is you're supposed to come down the fire escape, and then you step out here, 1 step, 2 steps, 3 steps, and what happens? You counteract it, and it hits the ground and stays down. As soon as you get off of it, what happens?
Goes back up.
Goes back up. Oh, let's have a scenario here, ready? I got a 150-pound woman dragging a 50-pound child during a fire emergency. She comes all the way down, the building's ablaze, and she's self-evacuating. She comes to this fire escape, or this fire escape, or this fire escape, or this one, and she has to do what? She goes to the first step, does it go down? Third step, does it go down? About the 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th step, what starts happening? Her and her child, child in front of her or behind her? Behind her. She's leading the way. So she goes down these steps, and does it drop at 2 to 3 feet per second or 5 to 10 feet per second?
5 to 10.
5 to 10, it finally hits the ground. Boom! What happens to her and her child?
They go flying.
They go flying, but she's good. She holds on. So she holds on, the thing hits the ground, big lot of shaking and rattling and rolling, and who starts crying? Kid. Mom says, hey, relax, let's get out of here. So the mom walks down the rest of the way, because now it hits the ground and it's down, and the 150-pound mom does what when she steps off the fire escape?
There goes the kid flying up.
The kid goes flying in the air. Average height of these things, so the trash trucks and cement trucks don't hit them, 12 to 14 feet. Kid is up in the air now, screaming and crying. The mom says what?
Jump.
Jump. The kid says what?
No.
No. Crying, help me, mommy, help me, mommy. Mommy, it's a fire. Fire's happening in the day or at night.
Right, of course.
Mommy's in her PJs. She's saying, jump, jump, jump. There's a fire, fire, fire. No fireman anywhere nearby. The mom says, starts thinking, and she does what?
Crime.
Yeah, she starts crying. I would too. And you run where?
Back in
You're
the
in back.
building.
Back into the building, so you run to the front of the building, you get to the front door, and what don't you have in your PJs?
Yeah, keys.
Keys, so it's a glass door, I think. I'm making up the stories as we go along. And I grab a brick or trash can, and I do what?
Break the window.
I'm about to throw it through the front door. Who shows up? Fire department that says, what? What are you doing? Says, I'm making the thing in the back, the alleyway, and what happens? Fireman said, no, don't worry, come on, let's go. They run back into the alleyway. The fireman gets underneath the kid and says, what? Jump. They go, ah! Minutes, precious minutes are going along. The fireman runs back to his truck to get what? Ladder or one of those pipe poles. Goes over there with this pole and snags the front of the stupid thing and pulls it back down, reunites the mother and the child, does what with his foot?
Holds the ladder.
Holds the fire escape cantilever down, and maybe he's one of the lieutenants or one of the captains. And now what happens? He sit there, we got fire and debris falling on his head, and he's yelling at everybody to do what? Because if he takes his foot off, what happens?
Goes back up.
So, does that make sense for it to work like that? So cantilever is supposed to have a release arm on them, so that when you're here and there's something blocking your way, you're supposed to hit the release arm. Oh, sorry about that. There's a cantilever in Chicago. Has a release arm on it. Single action requiring no special knowledge. And I'm being told by people down below what to do, what happens? I know how to use it, but now they're telling me, they're confusing the hell out of me, but otherwise, here it is, it's actively working. 2 to 3 feet per second. Hits the ground and stays down. Is it pretty violent? All cantilevers are violent. So it hits the ground, stays down, and you self-evacuate. Pretty clear? So that's what a release arm does. Keeps people from breaking into it because it's got a lock. And it lets people self-evacuate so that, you know, just at that time while we were there, what comes rolling down the alleyway? It's a cement truck. Now, these things are usually 14 feet high. So if my cantilever is not balanced correctly and it's slightly dipping down because it didn't have a release arm on it, holding it perfectly horizontal, what would happen?
Ooh, that's close.
That's very close. See? And he's going down these alleyways. Can he see up when he's backing up these things? So they're notorious. So trash trucks, cement trucks, when they smash a fire escape, is it a Reg 4 situation? Reg 4.
Oh.
You send out a Reg 4, or you send out immediately a life safety situation. Can your company still handle it though? You just sub it out to the right guy. That's all. So it's still your client. You have to bring in a different expert to handle that particular situation. See how violent it is?
Once released, Bill, come on down and throw it up.
By the way, this is how you reset one, so while we're able to just let it play.
And if people can evacuate, it stays down so that the firemen can come in. We got a truck coming in. Another one. All right, so now we're going to throw back up.
Perfectly balanced, weighs about 25 pounds on the nose.
Guy down below,
He throws it up, and that guy upstairs does what?
Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Hold on, you can't step
One more
on
time.
too much weight.
So sometimes it takes 2 or 3 times to get it, so now he's gonna throw it up.
Right back up.
It's a lot of weight, isn't it? And then he just puts it into position. So that's how you reset one. And now it's ready because it wants to drop. It's got 25 pounds on the nose and it wants to drop again, but that release arm is keeping it from dropping. So it's a perfectly balanced seesaw that weighs thousands of pounds.
Attach.
I've never seen one in LA with a release. Never.
But you'll see a lot of them would change, right?
Yeah, or
Yeah.
cables on the.
So that means as soon as you see, even the ladders are supposed to be single action ladder. You're supposed to go up to a ladder
Right.
and release it, and it's supposed to drop 2 to 3 feet per second. If you have to assist it in any way, and when you let go, it comes back up, it's out of balance.
Right.
Now here's the trick, ready? This happens all the time. I'm glad you brought that up. I go to look at a ladder, and it fails the inspection, the cable, the hydraulics, you name it. Failed. It needs repair. What happens? Where's it go now?
Well, in the city of Los Angeles, it would go through the Regulation 4 department, and they should refer it to building and safety.
It actually now is gonna
On my
go.
end, I would call you and say, give me a price to repair it.
Can't. No, you can't, because I can't repair it without a what?
Permit.
So automatically, is it part of Reg 4?
No, it's part of the building and safety.
So every fire escape ladder you ever fail automatically goes to public safety. And for that year, it's out of your re-inspections.
So let's say we go to a fire escape assembly, everything looks good, except the ladder fails to drop.
Correct.
So we failed it. Our procedure is that paperwork goes to the Regulation 4.
Yeah, you still submit your
Plus it
paperwork.
goes to the inspector who wrote the original notice.
Right, correct.
But as far as doing the repair, I can't go out there without a permit and just repair it so that it
Exactly.
drops properly.
Can't do it anymore. That's what we're told.
Right,
Don't touch it. If you're touching it, it needs a permit.
right.
As soon as you need a permit,
It goes
it's-
to building safety.
it goes through building and safety.
And they're the ones that go back and check it after you've done it.
Right.
With a representative from the fire prevention side of things.
So we would actually then be basically relieved of the responsibility of going back to retest it.
Because it's gonna be.
Because we can't sign it off anyway.
Because as soon as it hits permit, it hits the whole system.
Right,
So either the ladder passed and the fire escape failed, which goes to life safety, or the fire escape passed, the ladder failed, and it goes to life safety. Because in a perfect world scenario, last year, everything got refurbished. If that's the case, you're gonna have a ladder that you're gonna be retesting every 5 years, and it's just gonna constantly pass. Needs a little lube of oil, that's not permits, that's maintenance. Needs a slight adjustment of any kind, you got off track, put it back into track, doesn't need a permit. Those things you can go and take care of.
right.
But as soon as you start getting into, it's a structural issue, well, now you just brought the whole system into a permit, and now before it can return to service as an entire system, even though you just repaired a bent ladder system down below, well, who knows what occurred, how much force affected the rest of the domino effects issue of now it's life safety. And they have a fire department element in there that is gonna take care of that re-inspection part, but the permit sign off is gonna clean that all up. After that, then a year after, Reg 4, back to you, Reg 4, still your client. Now, people agree, some people may disagree, just bring it up in conversation, that's what we were told. That's why we found this a very important time to start teaching these classes, is because what's been happening in the past is that people have been using your ladder inspections as a full inspection.
Yeah.
Not intended, but it's happening. Oh, my fire escape passed. Oh, you just had your ladders Reg 4 tested. And there was never really a big push for you to have an opinion behind you. That opinion behind you is saying, you know, this ladder does function very well, but this fire escape doesn't look so hot what it's attached to.
Yeah, but for years and years, we've walked the entire fire escape assembly and done a.
But you weren't given clear instructions on what to say about it, right?
We found, so the tread, you're actually calling, those are the slats that you're walking on.
Yes.
There is a tread, is the correct.
Yeah.
word
Terminology,
for it.
yeah.
So if one of those was, you know, there was a bolt popped out.
Yeah.
And it was loose, we just ride it up, go out and put another bolt in it, you know?
And here's the reason why. You're taking on so much liability by doing that
Right.
one bolt.
Which we didn't
If
even know.
one bolt out of 75 of them already popped. You don't think there's others that are following that? So you went and fixed that one, not realizing that was 2 more up above that 6 months from now are gonna be in that state. And they're not gonna look at that for another year or another 5, depending on the cycle of inspection. So because you fixed that one bolt, you basically fixed the system. Somebody gets hurt in that system, who they sue?
Yeah, they're gonna come after us.
You own it.
You touched something you weren't supposed to touch. Okay, so it's a, now you understand where this, so this is a typical training tower for firemen. This is in Watertown, Massachusetts. I inspected it, and they were using this stuff to the day we inspected it. Look at all the failing treads. So even firemen are not watching their stuff sometimes. Look how much rust growth is there. 1/4 inch every 25 years. Look how much rust growth. This is actually, believe it or not, on a building for veterans. It's a veterans housing and hospital on top of a hill. So if the war didn't kill you, fire escape will. Here's some nice horror stories. Trash truck hits. So what are we finding out there, guys? That's from a hammer test. That's the city hall. See the treads missing on the 3rd floor there? This is a great story. We actually took a fire escape as of this year, January 19th. We had an elementary school up to 8th grade, elementary to 8th grade, and there was a staircase that fed the playground. Every day, kids, teachers use this. In this fire escape, I was able, for the first time ever, because it was a 1-story fire escape, I was able to save the lower part of it, which is about 2 treads that were buried into the asphalt, and the upper portion where it transitioned into the platform. I was able to, like a wedding cake, I was able to slice a piece out of it, and I brought it to a class January 26th of this year. And I put this fire escape on display. On one part of it, we fixed it and we sealed it correctly, a correct repair, and then on the other part, we totally butchered it and said, here's how people weld and cheat and leave the rust. So that's what we did. So see all the rot? So we put it on a frame and we brought this to a class and we showed just what everybody did and all the, you know, how guys can cheat a fire escape and call it a repair. And the EPA doesn't let you weld because this fire escape's got lead on it. So we took this to class and we did a show and tell, and none of the inspectors were happy because the class basically showed that somebody was not doing their job. And how can you have a fire escape on a building that it was the maintenance guy that made me replace it, not a fire official, not a building official, not a violation. It was the maintenance guy said, this is gonna kill all my kids, and we gotta get this out of here. So we replaced it between the Christmas break. And this is the typical repair. You get a fire escape that has this kind of rot, just blow a weld on it. But now the EPA says you can't. You can't burn anything that has lead. If you're gonna cheat the client, at least pop the bolts and put in new bolts. Leave the rust in there, but pop the bolts and put some new bolts. Because new bolts come with what kind of guarantee? A manufacturer's guarantee. Does the weld? Rust grows every year. So this weld, can it hold rust growing? It'll snap it. Bolts stretch, weld snap. So this will pop within a year. You cheat the client, then change out the bolts only, because the bolt will give them at least 10 years. Because as a bolt grows with rust inside, it'll keep stretching and stretching. It'll give you evidence that it's about to go. But, I mean, if you're gonna rip off a client, rip them off the right way. It's this way. You know, change the bolts. Don't do this, because now the EPA will give you a $35,000 fine. So we showed this was show and tell. It's great. Did a video on it, you know what I'm saying? So, and again, the video's online, so we'll send you a link to the video, you'll love it. So this is us screwing around with it. We shrunk it down, you know, we cut all the things in the middle. There's the other big piece for the top, there's the lower bar. We had a great time with this thing because it was basically heavy as all hell, and we brought it to class and it was show and tell. So kids would come out every day, go to the playground, beautiful playground. This is actually like a French school. This is a private French school.
Sorry.
Huh?
Montessori?
No, it's, forgot, next to Arlington. This is the new one we put up. And we sort of fed it now to the right side and down along the wall there, instead of straight out, so we're getting more room for them to kick balls around. But look, existing, so we kept this piece down here and this piece up here. We cut it like this. Great piece to show, because now you show evidence of rust, so it really helped the class. About a fireman pole fire escape. Rutgers University. So you send your kids to school, they say, hey, when you're half drunk, you left the candles burning, and all hell's breaking loose, lean over to the pole, hold on to it, that's very important, and slide down. And you should be the first one at the bottom, because while your main crippled body is on the ground, all your friends can land on you to cushion the blow. Because some of them are going to crawl out their windows half drunk and fall down the hole. It's fun. I've never seen one of these ever in my life. And there's one at a college. This is that that photograph of the Bridgeport, Connecticut. And this is the important shot out of the Bridgeport. It's an 8-year-old child coming down a fire escape ladder that won't come down. That could be your niece. That
So
could be your
that's
friends.
up high, there's like,
12 feet off the ground. She's coming, and there's a fire. That's the fire behind. This chick is getting out of there. Where's her mom? How come her mom's not ahead of her or behind her? Is this your kid?
But right now, firefighters are taking down the ladders and rolling up the hose. But right now, firefighters are taking down the ladders and rolling up the hoses. But earlier in the night, when they pulled up, there were flames coming out of the side of the building. Firefighters say it was one of the scarier moments, because when you pull up to a building and you see children and mothers hanging off the side of the fire escape, smoke swirling around them, they said that's scary, scary stuff. They got up there, they got the ladders up, and they said nobody got hurt.
The fire escape, there was 3 or 4 people hanging off the fire escape. They couldn't get off. They were just on the fire escapes. I had people hanging in the fire escapes at the rear of the building.
Hanging.
And on this side.
Hanging around, having a smoke,
We had
relax,
lots
and
of
waiting for
people on
everybody to come
that
up.
fire escape.
Hanging,
Well,
they're just
about
hanging.
50 people were displaced inside this building. Our firefighters say there's good news tonight. It looks like everybody will be allowed to go back in except the one unit where the fire was in. They said that's good luck to them tonight. I'm Bob Wilson, on the scene of Bridgeport, News 8.
Yeah, they were hanging. Now, if you just certify that ladder and it won't come down during an emergency and they're just hanging, and somebody got injured, well, they're going to come after. Well, it doesn't matter, because if you use anybody as a sub, guess what they're going to come after? You're the client. You own the client. You just subbed it out. You own this. And so you better make sure that whoever's doing this is doing it correctly, because it's a life safety issue. And let me tell you something about we learned this from personal knowledge, you know, oh, I'm listed as an additional insured. Great, you still get sued. You still show up. And when you go to the insurance company and say, hey, you listed me as an additional insured, protect me against this client, it says, no, court case hasn't happened yet, so you protect yourself. And then after the court case, the lawyers will divide who's responsible and then send each other cross bills. Because when we had that incident in Chicago, I said, hey, Mr. Vendor that did the job for me, you listed me as an additional insured, thank you very much. By the way, we're getting sued, so can you please have your guys call? The insurance company denied the request for coverage. I don't know what we're talking about. So I called my insurance company, says, oh, that's what we do all the time. It's not that we're not gonna cover you, it's just, because they're gonna ask us for additional coverage, because the guy that I was doing it for the management company had me sign one of these, list me as an additional insured. And my company, when he said, hey, defend me, my company says, hey, go kick rocks. Because at the end of the court case, we'll figure all this out. So you defend yourself, I'll defend myself, that one will defend. Everybody's defending themselves. So this additional insured thing is important, but you still have to defend yourself. At the end, the lawyers will send each other cross bills, depending on who wins. So that was another eye-opener for us. This is what we're worried about, right guys? Let's take a look at what's inside the building. lot of people don't realize that every building in the United States is a masonry block wall, usually about this thick. It's either made up of 2 or 3 layers of dirty bricks, or masonry wall of some kind, terracotta or some crazy thing. And then when you're done with the dirty bricks in the back, you skin it with a veneer of bricks. This veneer of bricks is not structural. This is a 20-story structure in Chicago. That at first looked great, but upon investigation, what did we find? We found that for 20, 30, 50 years it had been leaking down from the roof between the veneer and the masonry wall. And that you couldn't see it on the outside other than this evidence of rusting that's coming out through here, but the water that kept coming behind, because most brick is a 3/4 away from the wall there. That's enough for water to constantly come down the whole 20 stories. And what's it do? It eats all your steel. Well, you'll never see that because look how great the steel looks from here out. Look how bad the steel is from here in. What will identify this? A load test. What else will identify this? Removing all these bricks. What else will identify this? You drill a hole next to it and you'll see the rotten steel. You know what will eliminate all this crap? 5 inches away, a new epoxy bolt, 3/4, 8 to 12 inches deep into the masonry, and then you mechanically fasten back to this and you let sleeping dogs lie. Because if I was to load test this thing, what could happen because of all this crap?
Yeah, I know.
It's gonna crumble. So load test will fail a fire escape. But if I let sleeping dogs lie, and I have new connections anyway, do I care about this?
Not really.
And when you open up walls, now you got other issues. Now I can't finish my fire escape because now the city official saw this, he's got on the thing, oh, we gotta check your parapet wall, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, oh my God, I can't finish my job. It's a can of worms. So, but I'm trying to avoid the load test, right? Pictures don't lie, right? There's another one. So after exposure, bulges in the wall, there's all this telltale signs that things are happening. How does the steel look from here out?
Fine.
How does the steel look from there out, huh? Look at that, all that great stuff from there out. But what's it look like inside? Man.
Not good.
So duplicate the connection, leave it, let it stay buried. This is what it looks like when you drill a hole. We did this on a building here in California. CJ?
Yeah.
Where was it?
7th, I believe.
You want to verify? You drill 2 or 3 holes, like that. We have to drill 2. That'll let you put in that probe you buy at Home Depot. A little camera on it, you can take photographs. Right? That's the verification process, isn't it? You drill a bunch of holes. You look down the hole. What is that? Anybody see anything good? Can you tell what the hell is that hole about?
No.
A lot of times, like, dude, it's a freaking hole, right? And you go down the thing and it looks like that. You're like, okay, what am I looking? It's like, you know, it's like looking in a tomb. You know what I'm saying? In the pyramids. What's in there? Dude, I don't have enough information. But that same drill and the time it takes for me to drill this verification hole. If I did that hole 5 inches away in nice, clean cement, clean brick, and I bury it 8 to 12 inches deep, and I take a 3/4 epoxy bolt from Hilti, manufacturer, insurance, and I make this beautiful connection in there with the epoxy, and then I put an angle connector coming back here and here, and I mechanically fasten it here, and I through bolt it there. Do I care? Do I have to destroy such a beautiful connection? Do I need to load test it? Nope. I'm at 200%, right? What do we got here? This is what that stupid probe looks like when you stick it in a hole. See the guy's face? I think that's CJ. Is that you, CJ?
No, that's Marco. I'm
Marco.
actually taking the picture with this guy. We went through the whole wall.
So these holes is just a waste of time because you're basically destroying something, and you can find things you don't even want to see. But you lose people like that. You know, people nuts. Okay. So a lot of these are very verifiable, so sometimes you'll get into a building, you'll see, so you just need to repack that. That's a verified connection. In some rare cases, when the masonry wall, some rare cases, they'll have a through bolt with a plate on the inside. This is only really for wood structures. Most construction is 8 to 12 inches deep into the masonry wall, and you can't see it from the inside. Only factories, mill buildings and such, where you see the through bolt coming all the way in. That's not a traditional construction. This is a load test. This is that, the LA building. So I have several ways to load test every one of these platforms. Sand, water, or I can use a pull cable. About 3,000 pounds, so I have to put 3,000 pounds on every one of these platforms for 30 minutes. Engineer oversight, engineer criteria. Every fire escape has to be engineered to know where you're gonna pull it, what you're gonna do. But you can use sandbags, water, pull cable. And what we did is we have this truck at the bottom that weighs 7,000 pounds, and we try to lift its ass in the air. And as we lift it, we check on the counter, and the counter says 3,000 pounds. You say, "Whoop, stop." Because how do you calculate how much you have to lift? 3 by 5 is how many square feet?
15,
Times 100 pounds per square foot is how many pounds?
1,500.
That's it. There's your count. So you just calculate the area times 100 pounds, and for 30 minutes you got to throw a load, and you got to load test it with 40% of the weight. Take measurements. Can't deflect more than 3/16 of an inch. If it does, it fails. If it passes the first 10 minutes of 40% of the load, you load the remaining 60% of the load. Take measurements again. If it deflects more than 3/16, you do what?
Stop.
So are we promoting load tests or refurbishments?
Yeah.
What's safer for everybody?
Refurbish.
Because this is how you load test a fire escape. You bring it back, you stand on the fire escape and you put it down. What could happen?
Yeah.
Your brake on it.